I go with Clown. This nigga fat. Let me check his ability. Temple hold to lunch a bottle. I'm not finna be lunching no bottles, nigga. I feel like I should get to play. I feel like I should get to play in fat environment, survival, RJ survival. With vile purge to create an unending cycle of sickness. Press and hold the power button to charge vile purge. Release the button to unleash a stream of infectious bile. Hitting a survivor. Special ability. Infect the survivor. Can heal themselves to full. Get infected by cleaning at the pool of devotion. Let's consume and empower her purge. Press and hold the interaction to pull curl purge. After using energies around purge, place shred fire. I don't know about her. The honey, not a honey. I might use it. I'm finna look at a list of killers.
Actually a charity at all.
Prosecutors say the group pushed veterans into mental health facilities just to collect the insurance money. They preyed on veterans. Herschel Walker made hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Hello friends, this is Odds, and today I'm going to do my best to explain and discuss my reasoning behind the latest killer tier list that I put together. Is for patch 5.60, the very latest patch at the time of recording this. And again, a little disclaimer, some of the killers are very noticeably stronger than others, but that doesn't mean that the weaker killers are bad. Next up is Legion. Now many people consider Legion to be one of the worst killers in the game. Their skill ceiling is probably the first out of the whole set of killers to be relatively low. Their add-ons are okay. They're decent, we'll talk about in a minute. But once you've injured someone with your power, then you actually have to chase them. You are at the absolute mercy of the map. Strong windows, strong pallets, anything, perks on the survivor side, anything to delay that down. And Legion, at least in principle, has nothing to help you actually down people. He doesn't have any real chasing power. The ability to body block and Fell Frenzy, all of these things, they are extremely and of course we start with the S tier, and the number one always has been, probably always will be, is the nurse. The nurse has an enormous skill ceiling, a bit of decision making for sure, but mostly when it comes to landing her plates, which is her ability to teleport through the map and through objects. Of course, this ability alone already kind of breaks the flow of the game and breaks every conventional chase mechanic. Next up is our second killer, Blight. Now, Blight released in a rocky state with a weird FOB, some flakes and whatnot that were patched out, but slowly he's been settling into the meta, and also, much like Nurse, he's been also recently buffed for some very insane reason. So his skill ceiling is one of the highest in the game. Not only do you need to have the mechanical know-how to do certain complex moves and quick sequences of rushes and hits.
Over 500,000 of you guys voted on one of the most fun killers in Dead by Daylight are, and after months of just rating you with constant community polls, we finally have our results. And I'm actually really surprised with some of the placements on this list. Also, this list is how fun the killer is to play against, not to play against. point. It has been literally like at least 2 or 3 months of just collecting all of your guys' data to figure out which killer is the most fun killer in Dead by Daylight. So in today's video, you guys are going to be ranking every single killer in Dead by Daylight from least fun to most fun. Also, if you guys like this new editing format, in the least fun killer in Dead by Daylight. I'm so proud of you guys. I'm so proud. Do you even think you need 2 hands to count how many times you've played against the twins? Like, literally nobody plays them. They're so boring. Their add-ons are so uninspired. Their playstyle promotes camping and tunneling and slugging, which are some of the most boring parts of this game. I don't see a single reason why anybody would choose to play this killer. I'm sorry to any twins mains out there, but the entire community agrees that the twins are the least fun killer in this game. The next one is going to Freddy Krueger with the Nightmare. You know, this actually makes me kind of sad because I personally used to enjoy playing Freddy, but after the recent nerf after nerf after nerf, he's just gone absolutely down. It's been awful for him. I think the only fun things about him are being able to teleport around the map, which is kind of nice, and being able to use his dream pellets. It is really fun to have a survivor think that there's a pellet there and they throw it and then you just hit them right through it. However, against good survivors, they're going to generally keep track of, you know, which pellets have already been thrown down, and if they're in a swift, they can just call it out. And dream pellets promote free dropping pellets, which, you know, eliminates all risk involved in chase, which makes it kind of boring as well. But other than that, he's basically just an M1 killer that's able to teleport around the map. Like, his snares barely do anything anymore, so, like, what's the point? The third most boring killer in the game is going to Clown. I'm actually very surprised by this. I think Clown is actually kind of fun to play as, because, you know, you have to, like, line up your bottles, and hitting a really far shot is really satisfying. But yeah, I can kind of see how people think Clown is pretty boring to play as, because his power is literally just throw bottle one way to force the survivor to go the other way and then hit them. So I guess there's not a lot of interesting things with this mechanic. The next spot hurts my soul so much, and it's Hag. Everybody thinks that Hag is so boring to play. I don't understand why people think Hag is boring. It's so fun in my opinion. I'm gonna stand on my chair while I'm yelling at you so I'm more intimidating. Hag is fun in my opinion because you have to have a lot of map knowledge and you have to strategize and you have to do all sorts of stuff. But I can understand why he's not here. People probably think Hag is boring because, you know, there's no chase involved. But, like, that's bullshit entirely. But, like, to me that means he's unique. But I guess not to you guys. Let me just But the next one is very justifiable, and that's Trapper. Trapper could be way more fun. Actually, no, it can't. I think at this point in DBD's life cycle, Trapper there's just nothing that can save him. Like, there's just literally nothing. Sure, you can give him, like, all traps to start with, but he still has to place them. And a lot of maps don't have grass whatsoever, and with all the reworked maps, there's less and less grass, and it just makes it so much harder to use Trapper, because on a lot of the old maps, there were so many big patches of tall grass, and now he doesn't have that, so now he's practically useless. He's one of the weakest killers, one of the most tedious killers to set up with, and his power doesn't even work half the time, so that's always fun. The next one is going to the Legion, so I wonder if this is going to change. As of recording this video, Legion has a huge buff in the PTB, where they did an entire add-on rework that has a lot of different playstyles that changes up Legion a lot, and I think they did a fantastic job with the add-on rework, and they added 2 new chase musics, which is kind of cool. But I can still see why Legion is generally pretty boring, because the only fun part is, you know, when you're in your stabby mode. But you're only in your stabby mode to injure the survivors. And then once you're out of your stabby mode, then what? You're just a basic killer with literally 0 power to catch up to the survivors. So sure, it's really fun to sprint really fast, but you're only going to be doing that for, like, not even half of the game. The next spot is going to Doctor. I can understand why you guys don't like Doctor, because all he does is basically just, like, shock, and then shock, and then shock, and then shock, and then runs the loop around again, and then shock, and then you just keep doing that until you catch up to the survivor, which is a little tedious and a little boring, but I think he's a little bit higher on the list because he has a lot of really, really small mechanics, such as, like, the fake red stain or the fake terror radius and all of that stuff, which makes him actually kind of interesting to play as. He also has the ability to find immersed survivors, and immersed survivors are the most boring thing in Dead by Daylight's existence, so anything that allows me to find the immersed survivors hiding in the bushes, I will take. Alright, next up is Trickster. To me, I find Trickster pretty boring just because in most situations, these survivors literally have, like, 0 counterplay. Like, I feel so bad for them because I'm just constantly throwing knives and they can't do anything about it. It's so dumb. If I could have a single killer be removed from the game permanently, it would be Trickster. And playing as Trickster is literally just playing a less satisfying version of the Huntress. Like, with Huntress, whenever you get a hit, it makes that squishy sound and it injures them. But with Trickster, you have to go, like, ding, 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 like 7 times. There's, like, no satisfaction in actually injuring a survivor with your power. Plus, he just feels so clunky and so slow to play, especially...
Pay a 1% listing fee and save thousands when you buy and sell with Redfin.
If you're in a loop where you actually can't use your knives, because then you're just a basic killer, and if you try to pull up your knives, it slows you down so much, and it's very annoying. Okay, next up is the Pig. I'm gonna assume that people think power makes her like really hard to rank. But from what I can tell, a lot of people enjoy her mechanics of like sneaking up the survivors or using her dash and trying to like 50-50 it at certain loops. But she is kind of basic, which makes it a bit more difficult for her to move on. The next spot is going to the artist. I haven't had enough experience to play as the artist to know why people think she's boring. I think mostly because in Chase you kind of just set up a bird and then push the survivor into that bird, and no matter what they do, they're going to get a hit because you either hit them with your bird or you hit them with your weapon. So I think that's just not very satisfying to me because you're not really outplaying the survivor, right? You're kind of just, it's kind of like Clown. Actually, it's almost exactly like Clown. You set something up, and then if the survivor goes that way, they're going to get hit, and if they don't go that way, they're still going to get hit. I don't think people find that very satisfying. The next spot makes me a little angry as well, and that is Raid. You guys ranked Raid so low on this list, and it makes me so angry because there's just so much you can do with it. All of his add-ons give him a completely different playstyle. You can make him go super fast while cloaked. You can make him break things and fall things very fast while cloaked. So you can pair that with brutal strength. You can pair that with enduring spirit fury. You can pair that with so many different things, and he just has so many different playstyles that he's so versatile. And sorry about the rant. I just really enjoy playing the Raid. I think right now with the healing meta, it is much more difficult to play Raid because it's kind of frustrating to do, you know, his most effective playstyle, which is the hit and run, and to hit somebody and then they heal literally 10 seconds later. It's like you just did something, but then you didn't do something. It is quite annoying for that to happen, so I do understand where that's coming from, but still, I'm sad. Now we're going to move on to, like, the relatively fun killers. We're going to start this category with Pinhead. I think Pinhead's actually pretty fun. I think a lot of people don't like Pinhead because a lot of people play solo queue, and Pinhead is atrocious in solo queue because, you know, if your teammates can solve the right configuration, then you're just going to be sitting over here, like, occasionally being poked by the chains, and there's literally nothing you can do about it, unless you want to run all the way across the map. And if you're on Mother's Dwelling, or you're on Swamp, it's going to take you like 40 seconds to run all the way across the map, and by that point, the survivor has probably gotten on it, and then you just wasted so much time. But I think Pinhead's chase potential is what makes him fun, because you get to dodge his stuff, but he's kind of like Huntress, where you have to aim. I know you guys can't aim, so that's why it's low on this list. Okay, the next fight is going to Plague. Plague is like the most average killer. She's going to be in the middle of literally every list, I swear to God. Like, have you seen a Dead by Daylight tier list? The Plague is not, like, somewhere in the middle, because I don't think I have. I think Plague can be fun if you master her power, because being able to hit a corrupt bird shot from super far away over like 30 obstacles is so satisfying, but this doesn't happen very often. I think Plague would have been much lower on this list before her quality of life patch, because she used to feel so clunky. Like, sometimes you would fill up your meter and it wouldn't reach a certain threshold, so you would slow down, but you wouldn't puke anything, so it's just like you slow down for no reason. Alright, the next fight is going to Spirit. I wonder if Spirit would be in a different spot before her, because I feel like a lot of people consider Strength to be fun, and Spirit obviously was the second best killer in the game, so I wonder if her ranking changed, because now she can't really, like, mind game while she's phasing. And anecdotally, from my personal experience, she's just really slow. Like, she's a 4-4 killer, so she moves slower than most killers anyway, but, like, her mobility doesn't really feel that fast, you know? So she just feels really slow all the time, and I think that's why she's not, like, super high on this list. And, of course, you have to have, like, really, you know, all agree that her sound is Leatherface. Obviously, if you're going to play Leatherface and you're gonna face cam, please leave. Leatherface, if you're gonna face cam as Leatherface, obviously that's very boring. On this list, because you're quite literally just standing still. At that point, you're not even doing anything. But I think he's so high on this list because in chase he's actually kind of fun. You have to determine whether or not you should pull your chainsaw because you're going to be able to make it to that window before they vault it, or to that pallet before they throw it, or you have to decide whether you should respect the pallet because they're going to try to stun you perfectly in time, and you have to determine the survivor's skill level, so if they're going to try to stun you while you're doing your chainsaw swing, and if there's two survivors grouped up together, you're going to be able to instant out both of them at the same time. Like, there's just so many little tiny things that give you little moments of sense. In medium to lower levels, he's like so easy. Like, he's just so easy. At higher MMRs, that's where it gets a little more difficult because he's not a very good killer, to be honest. And on maps like the game where there's 57 god pellets, it's going to be quite difficult. Alright, next up is going to Deathslinger. I think it would have been higher on this list because now he has that, like, really clunky, slow ADS speed, which personally, like, it doesn't change anything. Like, it really doesn't impact that much. It just feels like I'm quite scoping in COD now. It's literally like the exact same speed as using a DSR in Black Ops 2, if you guys know what I'm talking about. So to me, who have played COD all of my life, this really doesn't bother me. But I can understand, like, if you played the old Deathslinger where you can instant quickscope, and now there's like that weird slow ADS speed, I can understand why that might have turned you off from playing it. But he is definitely higher up on this list because it's so satisfying to hit really cool shots because you can shoot through literally the tiniest of cracks. You can shoot through the shack walls, you can shoot through the railings on stairs. Like, there's just so many ways to shoot him. It's great. Okay, the next fight is going to Hillbilly. He's one of the hardest killers to play in this game. It is so frustrating if you're bad with it, like me. For one, half the maps have these huge indoor areas that you can barely use as power arms. So two, knowing how to curve takes like hours upon hours of practice. And a lot of people can't do that much dedication to learning how to curve like you would. So it just makes it a bit harder. But if you're good at Hillbilly, I'm sure he's fantastic to play because hitting snipes and hitting curves, I'm sure is so satisfying to the point of satisfaction. Yes, exactly. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, next up we have the Onryo. The Onryo is the newest killer to come to Dead by Daylight, and she's supposed to be like this jump scare stealth killer, except you always know if she's near you because like there's directional audio when she teleports on a TV, and even while she's stealth, you can still hear a faint terror radius. So that kind of ruins it from the survivor's perspective, but this video is not about the survivor's perspective, and I'm sorry if I keep talking about the survivor's perspective. But playing as her, I feel like she's pretty hit or miss, which is why she's kind of in the middle of the list. Like, she can teleport practically anywhere on the map, but then her stealth, like in chase, she has basically nothing. Like, stealthing doesn't really do anything in chase, right? Like, manifesting and demanifesting in chase doesn't really do much besides, like, flicker you in and out of existence, which sure can occasionally get you a hit, but most people will, like, WP to a different loop because it's slower, or something very fun to just, you know, to be alone. With Nemesis, Tentacle Boy, Tentacle Man, Tentacle Big Strong, Tentacle Man, what am I saying? Do you guys like Nemesis because of his zombies or because of him himself? Because like his zombies are kind of fun. I've had a zombie face camp a survivor in the basement and it was fantastic because the survivors couldn't get down the basement because there was a zombie blocking the path. It was great and he just stood there and it was awesome. So the zombies are kind of fun if they work in your favor, except they're quite unreliable. And I also think it feels pretty nice to just whip out your tentacle and just smack it on pallets and break them instantly without really slowing down. I mean, you slow down a lot, but it doesn't, you know, being able to move while you're breaking your pallet, it feels very, very nice. And I think a lot of people started playing DBD because of the Resident Evil series. So I'm sure a lot of you guys who think Nemesis is really fun probably played the Resident Evil series and think it's pretty fun to play, you know, as one of those characters. Okay, moving on to the next spot, which is Michael Myers. My assumption for why Michael Myers is so high on this list is simply because he's so iconic and he's like pretty easy to use. So a lot of newer players use it because he's easy to use and he's iconic, so everybody knows about him. But I think once you start to play the game more, you start to realize how outdated this killer is. So that's why it's so surprising that he's like this high on this list. The shape is very, very outdated. Like his power is just very bare bones. But I think one of the things that makes him way, way higher on this list is his variety in add-ons. The fact that he can do Scratch Mirror Myers and Tombstone Myers and Unlimited Tier 3 Myers. Like there's so many different things that you can do with him, which makes it much more replayable. Like why is Wraith so low on this list? I don't understand. It's crazy. And then the next one is going to Ghostface, which is probably the most stealthy killer because he can cloak basically whenever he wants, and with his new buff that's in the BTB right now, he's gonna have so many add-ons that allows you to get your stealth so much. Like one of them makes it so that if you break the door, you recover your power. Immediately, which is gonna be so fun because you can cloak practically whenever you want. It's also very intense to, you know, stalk a survivor fully and have to be in chase with them and have to down them within a certain period of time. Like you stalk someone fully and you have exactly 1 minute to get any use out of your power whatsoever. So I think most people enjoy playing Ghostface just because they like the stealth aspect of his kit. Plus he can teabag really fast. The next fight is going to one of my favorite killers, and that is the Nurse. I'm actually very surprised that the Nurse is this high on this list because she's one of the hardest killers to master in this game. So I would expect most people to put her kind of low on this list. But yes, if you learn how to master her, and if you get good at Nurse, she's so fun. It's so satisfying to hit really, really long blinks because we're able to predict the exact survivor movement. It's really satisfying to be able to get hits in indoor maps like Larry's. If you play Nurse on Larry's, even if you're good at Nurse, if you play Nurse on Larry's and you get a hit, a single hit the entire game, it's so satisfying because you like teleported through 50 different walls and managed to hit them somehow. So once you know how to play Nurse, she's so fun to play as because there's just so many little mind games that you have to do with the survivors while you're looking that it just makes it very, very good. Alright, the next spot is going to the Executioner, aka the DBD. DBD is a very, very fun killer if you're good at him. He is pretty difficult to use, but if you play him consistently, you can get a lot of really cool hits through the walls. And if you throw on eyeball ears, you're gonna get so many hits through walls, and it's really satisfying to get those. Plus, if you hate him, difficult to use, but if you play him consistently, you can get a lot of really cool hits through walls. And if you throw on eyeball ears, you're gonna get so many hits through walls, and it's really satisfying to get those. Plus, if you hate meta perks like Borrow Time and Decisive Strike and stuff like that, you can completely ignore those if you're able to get good play stuff through your love juice. It's also very, very satisfying to just worry people like half a second if they're gonna, which is harder than it seems, but still. And we are finally onto the last 4 killers on this list. This is the extremely fun Demogorgon. He's probably one of the most balanced killers in the entire game. One of the coolest things is that he's not just thing, which sure, it's cool, but like with so many of those, having a monster, having an actual like alien-esque creature is so cool. Plus it's frustrating. And plus you have your ability to teleport pretty much anywhere on the map as long as you're set up in portals, which can make it really easy to track different survivors, go across big maps, and maybe even cut survivors off in chase. The only thing I think that's bringing him down a little bit is the fact that his add-ons are like really, really boring. Most of his add-ons do essentially nothing. Like some of them just make your stealth coming out of a portal just a tad bit longer, which sure can be helpful in some really, really niche situations. But and clearly, you guys think he's one of the most fun killers in the game as well. Okay, the cool flicks that are so satisfying to hit, and there's just so much that you can do with the coolest characters in this game. It's kind of like Billy, but way easier to use. Like you can just move so quickly. On this list is going to the Odie, one of just the coolest characters in this game. It's kind of like Billy, but way easier to use. Like you can just move so quickly around the map, and you can get some really cool flicks that are so satisfying to hit, and there's just so much that you can do within his power that makes it fun to use and chase. However, if you're not able to consistently get hits on healthy survivors, then it's going to be very difficult for you to actually charge up your power. So kind of like Legion, he's just a basic N1 killer without his power, but once you're in his power, oh my god, it's just so good. Like, it's just so amazing. Alright, the second most fun killer, voted by you guys, is going to the Huntress. And I don't blame you, playing Huntress is great. One of the most satisfying things in this game is to hit a crossbow with Huntress. Taking really, really nice shots through like little cracks, really far away, or like predicting survivor movement is amazing and it's super, super fun. And it's so crispy to hear that splat of the survivor's blood. Because she has to charge her hatchet, which gives survivors ample time to figure out what to do next. They can keep running to try to get around the corner, or they can 50-50 in a pallet, or they can decide to vault and try to dodge it. Like, there's so many different things that survivors can do, which makes you, as the Huntress, feel like you're not just pulling up your hatchet and automatically getting a hit no matter what they do. Like, there's actually some thinking involved with using Huntress, because you have to decide what the survivor's going to do based on their position, based on the map, based on their skill level that you determine in your. And finally, the most, because it's just so fast, and finally, the most fun killer in Dead by Daylight. I don't know what you guys were expecting, but it is going to the Blight. I fully agree with this opinion. Blight is by far the most fun killer in this game, because it's just so fast, and he's so speedy, it's amazing. But unfortunately, he is a very difficult killer to master, which makes him a little less accessible, but that doesn't really matter, because who cares if you're bad? You're still using the Flash in Dead by Daylight. I am very glad that you guys ranked the Blight as the best killer in this game, because I fully agree, and it makes me so happy that other people enjoy playing as this killer too. So Behavior, if you're watching this for some reason, make more killers like the Blight. I think killers just want to be fast. Being fast is just so fun. Let me know which killer you like to play the most in the comments below.
Trillions in DC liberal spending sent inflation through the roof. Senator Raphael Warnock voted with Bernie Sanders and Nancy.
A lot of you have been asking me which killers you should level up first, and I'm here to tell you what the best order to do it in is. All of the placements on this list are going to be purely for their perks, not the killer themselves. So this is just if you want to get the really good perks early on in your game so that you get them on other killers as you continue to level them up. I'm going to separate the free killers from the licensed killers because I know some of you don't want to actually spend real money on this game, but for those of you who do, I'm going to start with that. If this video helps you out and you want more Lethal Pursuer, which basically shows you... Anyway guys, let's get right into the list. So I have 4 licensed killer recommendations, and the worst one of the 4 would probably go to Nemesis. He has Lethal Pursuer, which basically shows you the auras of all survivors for 7 seconds of the match. This is very good for just fighting the survivors right off the bat, because in the early games when you have the least pressure, you have no idea where anyone is, you have no slowdown, nobody injured, they could all be working on separate gens. Killers with low mode, pretty good. It makes it so that when a gen gets completed, the gen with the no, sure, it can kind of slow down survivors from working on gens if they're time to pop it, or it could give you time to, just injure whenever you pick up a survivor. And it blocks all gens that survivors are not working on. So sure, it can kind of slow down survivors from working on gens if they're, running towards a gen, and then those are going to... And something like Nurse, who can teleport through the windows to exactly where you are. I think this is another very underutilized perk, and it'll be really good for beginners to kind of learn what survivors tend to do after they've got 25% additional blood points at the end of your game. The Cannibal, because for one, probably be Trickster. He has No Way Out, which is a perk that makes it so that, just like Barbecue, the last perk we were talking about, you get a stack for each unique survivor that you book. And basically, if a survivor touches an exit gate door, once all the gens are powered, it gets blocked for a certain amount of time, and that time just becomes longer and longer the more unique survivors you book. I believe it's 48 seconds in total if you book all 4 survivors, or maybe it's a minute, but it's something pretty good. And this just allows you to get a lot of late game pressure pressure as like kind of a second chance, you know? And then there's Starstruck, which makes it so that when you're carrying a survivor, anybody in your terror radius becomes exposed, which means they're insta down for a certain amount of time. So if there's survivors that are trying to body block you while you're trying to get a hook, they literally can't do this or else they're gonna go down. So this is just a really good way to ensure that you won't get body blocked while you're carrying a survivor to a hook. And sometimes you can even take advantage of it by using, you know, Trapper's perk Agitation, which expands your terror radius while you're carrying a survivor. So your Starstruck will activate on more people. Okay, the next killer is going to Blight. Blight has Undying, which is undoubtedly one of the best perks in the game. This makes it so that any of your Hex totems, which are arguably some of the best perks in the entire game, will get an extra life. So you compare this with Hex Ruin, you compare this with Hex Devour, you compare this with literally any of the Hex perks to get a second use of those Hex perks to keep them up for longer. The only problem with Hex perks right now is with all of the boon perks that survivors have, they're going to actually be looking for these totems consistently because they're going to want to get used to perks. So basically, if you're using Hex perks and you're using Undying, they're going to get cleansed like pretty quickly in the match. But it is still a really, really good perk, especially for newer survivors that don't really know the spawn locations of the totems. And then he also has Blood Fever, which makes it so that when any survivor loses a health state by any means, all pallets near them get blocked for a certain amount of time. This is a good perk if you're able to injure somebody from far away, or if a survivor stays near you after you injure them. So let's say you're chasing somebody at Shack, and then you're able to injure them, but they don't actually leave Shack. Then Shack pallet gets blocked, and they can't use that pallet, which is one of the best pallets in the entire game. I bet this would be an amazing perk on Give Me Plant, because that map literally has like 50 pallets. It's insane. Okay, the next person I would recommend is the Artist, because she has one of the best perks right now, which is Scorch Effect Pain Resonance, which spawns 4 white hooks, which are called Scorch hooks, on the map, and you'll be able to see them. Their auras are white, and they're kind of glowing with particles. If you hook a survivor on one of those perks, it instantly blows up the post-progressed gen by 15%, and anybody that's working on it will scream, so you know that they're working on that gen. This is just a very good passive slowdown perk that you don't really have to pay attention to. I mean, sometimes you have to like decide whether or not you want to just hook them faster or hook them at a further Scorch hook just to get the ability, but it is a very, very good perk, and a passive slowdown is pretty solid. And then she also has Grim Embrace, which makes it so that once you hook every single unique survivor, so kind of like barbecue and kind of like No Way Out, you have to hook each different survivor at least once. And once you do that, this perk will activate. This just blocks every single generator on the map for 40 seconds, which sounds very, very strong on paper, and it is pretty strong, don't get me wrong. But if the survivors are smart, this can just allow them to, you know, reset and like heal or hit unhooks, or, you know, maybe even cleanse their while the generators are blocked. So it just makes them prioritize other objectives than the gens, which can be really good if they're trying to do gens very quickly. Okay, these last 3 killers you have to get first because they're so good. Like their perks are just so amazing. The third worst one of these would probably be Frog. He has Ponkers the Weasel, which makes it so that after you hook a survivor, for the next 45 seconds, if you kick a gen, that gen will regress by 25%, which is very, very strong, especially if the gen progression is really far. So this is a very good slowdown, but the problem with it is that you have to manually kick a gen. So sometimes people feel like they need to go kick a gen when they could have downed somebody and gotten even more pressure from that. So just try not to fall into that trap. And then he also has Bamboozle, which makes it so that every time you vault a window, it gets blocked for a certain amount of time so that survivors can't vault it. But you can only block one window at a time, so be wary of that. It also speeds up your vaulting speed, so this is really good to just shut down loops very quickly. One of the best things about this perk is you can go up to a window that a survivor just vaulted, fake going in one direction so that they go the other direction, and then moonwalk back and vault the window. Since you have a faster vault speed, it'll catch them off guard and they'll lose so much distance that you'll be able to get an injure or maybe even a down. Okay, the second best killer to get for their perks would be Plague, in my opinion. He has Corrupt Intervention, which is probably single-handedly the best killer perk in the game. It's a one-time use thing where at the beginning of the game, the 3 furthest generators from you get blocked for 2 whole minutes. That is so strong. It's just passive slowdown, and it makes it so that you just have to patrol the 4 gens that are near you, or if you're playing a killer like Hack or Trapper where you need to set up, it gives you more time to set up because the survivors aren't working on generators, so it just forces the survivors to come towards you, which is a very, very good ability, and it's something that just happens passively, like you don't even have to do it. And then she also has a perk called Infectious Fright, which makes it so that every time you down somebody, any other survivor that's in your terror radius will scream, revealing their location. So if they're trying to go for flashlight saves, you're going to know where killer to get first, in my opinion, and I think she's free on consoles, but at least on PC you have to buy her with shards, and that's going to the Hag. The Hag has Hex Ruin, which I'm sure you know what that is, but for those of you who don't, it basically regresses all gens that are not being currently worked done at twice the speed. This is such a strong ability. The only problem, like I mentioned earlier with Undying, is that survivors generally are looking for tokens more, and a lot of survivors know the token spawns. So Ruin will not last the entire game unless you're against a bunch of newer survivors. Which, if you are against new survivors, this run is so good and will literally carry you through your games. Just trust me on this. If your Ruin never gets cleansed for whatever reason, your gen regression is going to be through the roof. And then she also has another one of the strongest perks in the game, and that is Hex Devour Token. This basically promotes non-camping, which is really nice. And it makes it so that you get a stack for every survivor that's unhooked while you're far away. So just like barbecue, you'll get a little number on the perk icon. And once that number hits 3, every single survivor in the game is now insta-down until they find that totem. And you can still get 2 more stacks. You can get a maximum of 5 stacks on this perk. And if you're able to get 5 stacks, you can glory any single one of the survivors instantly, no matter what hook stage they're on. It's kind of insane. And you can also pair this with Undying, like I mentioned earlier, and then you have 2 lives of battles that need to find 2 separate totems. And it can just completely change that killer. Just throw on Devour, so you can still practice the killer while still getting a significant power boost in the middle of the game. This perk is pretty controversial, but in my opinion, it's a fair perk. These are the best skill check, and if you hit the skill check, you get off of the killer's shoulders. This is a palette or a general perk. What? 6 seconds? So you're not gonna leave. Just a really, this is such a. Plus, it's activatable whenever. It's just so good for you to get early because it really teaches you where windows are and where pallets are, and it helps you loot better because you know where to go next. This is such an underrated perk, and it's one of the best perks for beginners because then you can learn where the windows and pallets are in each loop. Kate also has the perk called Dance With Me, which is a really good perk in certain combinations. Dance With Me activates when you fastball a window or a pallet, and it just completely removes your scratch marks for the next 3 seconds. So if you pair it with perks such as Quick and Quiet, which makes your vault silent, and Iron Will, which makes you have no grunts of pain when you're injured, it'll make it so hard for killers to track you, especially on indoor maps, because you're not going to leave any sign of where you went except for your blood. The killer won't be able to hear you, the killer won't be able to see you, and the killer won't be able to see your scratch marks. This perk is very bad alone, but if you pair it with some other things, it can be extremely strong. Like, it's still hard for me to track survivors who are using different perk combinations with Dance With Me. She also has a perk called Boil Over, which has seen a lot of changes lately. It essentially just makes it so that when you're picked up off the ground by a killer, you wiggle harder. So it doesn't wiggle you off faster, but it wiggles the killer side to side harder so they get stuck on more things. And also, every time the killer falls from a height, your wiggle progression goes up by 33% of what it had. So for example, if you've been wiggling for 6 seconds and the killer takes you off of a height, then you're going to be able to wiggle off 2 seconds faster than you normally would be able to, which can actually be insanely strong if you're able to use it properly.
Perks, new tier list. Today I will be rating every single killer from worst to best. So starting off with the D tier, we have the Legion. Now I know this might sound sad, but the Legion right now is the worst killer in the game. Not only have they suffered massively from the circle of healing boom, but they are literally the only killer in the game who have to play as an M1 killer in order to down someone. Every single killer in the game aside from Legion has something that helps them down the survivors. I mean, if you want to count Frank's mixtape, then go ahead, but worry not, as it Blind got a massive boost from one of his most useless add-ons, the Adrenaline Vial, and if he was strong before, now he's even better. This killer is probably the killer with the highest skill ceiling in the entire game, even more than Hillbilly and the Nurse. This is because this killer offers many techniques, and knowing which ones you can bomb slide into his grave.
Yo guys, it's Aquatic, and this is my Dead by Daylight killer. So many things going for him. In fact, I'm gonna put him ahead of the Blight. The Blight doesn't have anything other than running fast. So no inherent mouse map pressure. It's not really the worst. So it's still faster than Survivors, but it's only 110. Sort of like Gunslinger here, or Huntress even. So she cannot easily run Survivor down. So Jesus, if you think you can't end it in just a few seconds, you need to put a lot of hours in to be good with him, because of the way that his chainsaw controls. But he's in million downs, and that is big. Also, to be who knows, but quarters, Lord. He's able to pretty good. Feels very good as well. It's whenever he gets.
Ooh, I got light.
Level 50 like me, and you actually need to know this is the best order to level up your killers and to open. Just and all these orders will be without DLC and orders Butcher and Nursegood. Who's like a Butcher? Everyone got the spirit Nursegood. It's Nurseberg and Tinker is Hildenberg with extra skin deaths to get more kills and more blood points and open it. You don't have to play Nurse, you can just spend blood points on her and open this perk. So it will appear in other blood points. Don't play Hillbilly or other clan, but spend blood points to Hillbilly, Nurse, get Tinker, and Nursegood. Very nice. This one is not a generic build where you should rely on the opponent to kill a starting direction, Buckles Wizzo, and Tinker, and to open this unit A and Cloud Lake open character direction, to repair it, to get to the passes really easy. Use it open wide. With this to pass, you got the foundation, but how give us access and spend us, we can replenish it and play.
Join the DC liberal spending Senator Raphael Warnock voted with Bernie Sanders and Nancy Pelosi for massive new spending that's bringing record inflation to stop the level spending to stop inflation. I'm pretty much on this.
used it on the merch cell, and then I gave it another try, and I got addicted to it. Fucking with it years ago. So. Guys got some good mood on. I will too, which is good. Other than doing up dead on for the second chance. I can do it. We need to get downs because we've got no gem defense. Dead on's gonna hurt quite a lot. I don't get anything from this guy, just smiling. Maybe she had dead hard. I mean, most of them do. It does depend on where your first blink is, though. Huntress roll. Huntress. Roll. Then land on him.
Bro, it's so rare. Clear. What? You know, definitely need that turn speed, because you can't turn for shit. So just the game.
Especially Legions. It's just so boring because it just makes your gen speeds 20% longer. And now it's going to be 22% longer. On top of some other perks that are going to slow down gens even more, like Pentimento, I feel like we're going to run into a lot of triple slowdown Legions, and it's going to feel the exact same as the infinite slowdown Freddy. So I'm hoping they look into this and keep this in check because that will be extremely boring. The next fight is going to Gift of Pain, and this is another perk that killers are going to pair with Thanatophobia and make the games last forever. Now the action speed penalty.
Bitch. Increase my turn rate by fucking 20 to 55%. Can't hit nobody with that shit. Death without fear, only 3 perks. Nigga, this kid cold.
a survivor gets unhooked and heals is now 16%. So you have a 16% slower action speed for pretty much everything. Pair that with the nanophobia and you have a 38% slower gen speed. Pair that with pentimento and you have a 68% slower gen speed, if I'm mathing correctly, of course. That is insane, and I'm really worried about it. Alright, so the knife spot is going to lethal. So I already thought this was a pretty good word, but now it also extends the overrating effects of any other word by 2 seconds. I think this is a perfect change. Like, it's not that big of a change, but it can allow you to actually use the perk throughout the course of the match, not just for the first 9 seconds. So I actually really like this, and I think it'll make other perks like barbecue and chili or eyeball ears way better. And the next spot is going to barbecue and chili. They've now removed the blood point bonus that you get from this perk, which is totally fine because they reduced the right by 75%. And I've always thought that the roar rating of barbecue was decent, but it wasn't that strong because there's a ton of ways to do it. So that's the reason it's in the complete middle of this list. Like, it's pretty good at killers that have a lot of ability. Of course, there's like 5 to 10 survivor perks that completely eliminate the roar rating abilities. And one of the survivor perks off the record, which hides your roar rating ability after you're unhooked, is gonna be used a ton in this new meta, which we'll get to later on in this video. Okay, the next one is going to Tinkerer. They basically just changed it so that now it only triggers once per gen, which is, you know, it's a fair change. I don't think it's really nerfing the perk too much. Plus, it kind of has an indirect buff since they changed gen speeds from 80 seconds to 90 seconds. So now you'll have more time to actually get to that gen, which is kind of a nice change. The next one is going to Ruin. I think Ruin's still going to be a pretty effective perk, especially for uncoordinated teams. They basically just reduced the regression speed from 200% to 100%, but still, the fact that you automatically lose progress in the gen when you're not working on it is still a really good effect. And it also deactivates the dual spider, which at that point you're probably going to win the game anyway, so it doesn't really matter. The next one is going to Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, and honestly, I think this is a very, very good change. It had 3 effects. When you hook a survivor on a Scourge Hook, it blows up the most progressed gen and instantly regresses it by a certain amount. I believe it was a 9% reduction, and because it blows up the gen, you get a loud noise notification, so you know which gen got blown up, and if any survivors were working on that gen, then they scream, which kicks them off the gen. So this paired really well with Dead Man's Switch, which blocks the gen when survivors get off of it after you get a hook. So basically, you could hook somebody, which blows up the gen, kicks everybody off, and then blocks it for like 35 seconds, which was so strong. And now they removed everything except for the regression, so you won't get the loud noise notification showing you which gen got popped, and it won't make the survivors scream, and it won't kick them off. So it's still a good regression perk, but you can no longer pair with Dead Man's Switch, which in my opinion was an extremely overpowered combination. Alright, the 4th spot, which I'm really excited for this perk, and it's going to Overcharge. Overcharge is the doctor perk where when you kick a gen, the next time a survivor touches it, they get a really hard skill check. And now, on top of that, the generator's regression speed will grow from 100% to 400% over the course of 30 seconds. So if a survivor doesn't touch this gen within 30 seconds, it's going to start regressing so quickly, and I think this is going to be a meta perk. This is definitely going to be one of the stronger regression perks because no one escapes death. So honestly, I don't really feel like the nerf is going to help high-level survivors, but it's definitely going to help low-level survivors, which I think they need. Basically what it's doing now is it shows the survivors the Hex Totem's aura within 4 meters when it activates, and then
pay a 1% listing fee and save thousands when you buy and sell with Redfin.
The Pokemon trading card game, Sword and Shield, Astral Radiance, available now.
4-meter range increases to 24 meters over the course of 30 seconds, so it'll just make it much easier to find the totem. But at high levels, with survivors who know where all the totem spawns are, they usually find the totem within 30 seconds anyway, so it's not really going to change much for them. However, for all of those low-level survivors who have no idea where the totem spawns are, I think this is a really good change for them. I still think this is a boring perk because you just have to drop everything you're doing and go around the entire map looking for the totems, but you know, what can you do? The second spot is going to Pop Goes the Weasel. So this perk got a little bit of a nerf, but it really doesn't change it all that much. It basically went from 25% to 20%, but now there's that change where gens get reduced by 2.5% every time a killer kicks it, so that technically makes this perk's regression up 2.5% as well. However, they also changed it in a different way too. It used to take off 25% Jolt. Jolt was already a good perk, and they just buffed it even more. Now it...
Bro, I'm making people quit, bro. That nigga just said, fuck it, I'm not beating your ass. You too overpowered. No one quit, nigga, bro. I literally made their ass quit, bro. Like, what? Hey.
Doesn't have any cooldown, so whenever you down a survivor with a basic attack, it'll blow up any gen near you and instantly regress them by 50%. That is so now you take out the cooldown and you can maybe use it 2 to 3 times before you win, depending on how fast you're getting down, of course. I think this is going to be one of the strongest gen regression perks we've ever had because it's completely passive slowdown, just like Perk. So I'm excited to see how this perk turns out. And that's all for the killer perks. Now let's move on to the survivor perks. We had a lot change on the survivor's end. So the last spot is going to Iron Will. This makes me extremely sad, but they basically made Iron Will completely worthless. What they used to do is get rid of all of your grunts of pain when you were injured, and now it only reduces them by 75%. So it's essentially like running Iron Will 2. But on top of that, it also doesn't work while you're exhausted. So this perk is completely useless. Like, the entire point of this perk is that you were silent when you were injured, and now you're not silent when you're injured. So what is the point? It's so bad. I'm just praying that the reduced sound when you're crouching makes this perk go to 100%, because if so, then it would actually be really useful. But as it stands now, with the information we have, it's like literally useless. Like, there's no point running this. Unless you're pairing it with no either, but like, why? The next one is going to Soul Survivor. Yeah, they made this perk significantly better. They made it so that when you're the last survivor alive, your gen repair speed is increased by 75%, and your exit gate speed is increased by 50%, and your hatch action speed is increased by 50%, whatever that means. So, yeah, these are really good buffs, but the main flaw of this perk is that it only works when you're the last survivor alive, so it only works when your teammates are dying, which is obviously not something you want. It's much better to bring a perk that would keep your teammates alive than to have this very selfish perk. So, I'd still say it's one of the worst perks in the game. The next one is going to Self-Care, which was already a pretty bad perk, and now they nerfed it even more, which I think is hilarious. You used to be able to heal yourself at 50% speed without a medkit, and now it's reduced to 35 speed, and they removed the item efficiency bonus for medkits. This perk was already really mediocre, and now it's so bad. Like, you could just run a ground medkit and get essentially the same effect. Like Kaito, you can use it an unlimited amount of times. You're only going to be healing like 2 or 3 times a match. This perk is terrible now. Absolutely terrible now. The 19th spot, which is really sad, and I think this should not have been changed because I think it was perfectly balanced, and that is going to Spine Chill. They completely butchered Spine Chill. I thought Spine Chill was a good perk, and I thought it was really well balanced as well. But now it's like so bad. Now it only activates if the killer has a line of sight on you, which means if the killer has a line of sight of you, you have a line of sight of them, which means the entire point of this perk where you know if the killer's coming to you, even if you can't see them, is completely gone, because if they can see you, you can see them, so why even bother using the perk? That's the worst change. That's only one change out of 3. Now it doesn't flicker on and off depending on if they're looking at you or not looking at you, so you won't be able to tell if they are coming straight to you, because now it lingers for 0.5 seconds after they stop looking at you. So it's just going to be really confusing because it'll stay on for longer even if they're not looking at you, so you're not going to get consistent information. And on top of that, they removed the vault speed bonus, so the vault speed build is no more, which is really annoying, honestly. So this perk is terrible. This perk is absolutely terrible now. The next one is going to Calm Spirit. They did a little tiny buff where you open chests and cleanse and bless totems silently now, but it's at a 30% reduced speed, so I don't know why they have the reduced speed. I think that's simply there so that they can have perk tiers for this perk, but, you know, it makes this perk a little better, I guess, because you can cleanse their hex perks without the killers knowing, but still, I don't think there should be a reduced speed at all. Like, I think you should just be able to do everything silently, which would be actually a kind of decent perk. The next one is going to Tenacity. Tenacity's not a very good perk. It's very situational and only really works with, like, power struggle builds, but now your grunts of pain are reduced by 75% when in the dying state, so it'll actually be pretty solid for slugging situations. Next up, we have Saboteur, which they they made a very, very light change too, and I actually think it's a really good change. On top of the auras of regular hooks that you already see, now any Scourge hooks are shown in a yellow aura, which is actually really cool, because then you can prevent Scourge hooks from being activated if you really want to. The 15th spot is going to No One Left Behind. This used to objectively be one of the worst survivor perks in the entire game, because it only activated when gates were open, and people 99 gates, so you barely got any use out of this. I don't think I've ever seen a single survivor using this perk, but now it activates when the last generator is completed, which is really good, and on top of its current effects where it gives you an increased unhooking speed, it also grants a 7% extra movement speed bonus to any survivors who unhook, so it's basically doubling the base kit 7% movement speed for unhooked survivors, which can actually be really good paired with the new borrow time, which increases the endurance to 15 seconds, so it'll really help to guarantee the safety of your unhooked survivors. I still think it's pretty average though. The next spot is going to Lightweight. This is a really hard one to judge because I'd have to see it in game. So what it does now is makes your scratch marks speed 3 seconds sooner, which is a lot of time. So it's gonna make it much harder to track survivors, and I don't know how hard it'll be to track survivors, which is why it's kind of a ridiculous list, but we'll have to see because this can move up or down on this list. The 13th spot is going to Deja Vu. Deja Vu was only good for beginners who didn't know where gen spawns were, and was really bad for survivors after they had like 100 hours on the game. It basically shows you the aura of the 3 closest generators to you after you complete a gen, and now it grants you a 5% repair speed bonus to those revealed generators, so it's a nice little extra speed boost, and may pair really well with some other gen rushing perks on this list. The next spot is going to Distortion. Distortion right now has like 4 tokens of...
Last year, Redfin saved booksellers almost $200 million. Wanna win? Sell with Redfin.
The Pokemon trading card games.
forgot the name of this killer. What is it? The man, what's it called? Damn, what's it called? The Blight nigga. This nigga is overpowered. I was doing these folks, and this nigga on level 23. He don't got no purple perks. Now with purple perks, this nigga would be deadly, bro. Terrified as fuck. And then I'm going against decent survivors too. Right. Undetectable. Wow. Oh, I'm even better now. I'm even fucking better now. Oh my gosh. Oh my god, this shit is dope.
Why choose proven quality sleep from Sleep Number? Because every new day starts the night before. What's going on, legends? Look here, I hope you've had an awesome day so far. 1 year ago, we successfully got our first ever 50-win streak to play. It was seriously tough, and it took us about 2 or 3 attempts to achieve. Now, the meta has changed, and MMR has been added, which in lots of cases can make the games even more difficult to win. On top of this, we committed to our usual playstyle of not keeping a single generator, making it even more challenging. The rules are really simple. If more than one survivor escapes, then the game would be considered a loss, and the streak is over. Instead of the original build that we used, which was Tinkerer, Ruin, Undying, and Pop Goes the Weasel, we brought Shadowborn, Pain Resonance, Deadman Switch, and Corrupt Invention. To say this build is insanely strong is an understatement. I don't think I've had a single game where the survivors got all 5 gens though, but some of the matches are still super clutch and have had to be very careful in difficult maps. When, for example, survivors were bringing 4 toolboxes with multiple brand new parts. We encountered a couple hackers from this streak as well, but thankfully we noticed them pretty quickly and then cancelled the game. I've included 3 games from this streak for you, and the final 50th game, which was super exciting to get to, as well as some spicy matches in Dead Dog and Alter Haven. We're going to be continuing this streak very soon to try and reach 100 wins in a row, so if you want to come and hang out whilst we do it, please feel free to catch us live on Twitch 5 days a week. Enjoy the video, legends, wishing you a great week going forwards, and as always, I'll see you all in the next one. MVP system, doesn't it feel like they're adding a grind mechanic to the game? It's kind of always been like that, to be honest, dude. Although I do agree that they can easily mitigate it by removing perk tables, right? That's the most obvious one. They really don't need to be in the game anymore. On top of that, I feel like some kind of system to like automatically spend blood points would be awesome, to be honest. I found it hard to rush into a paladin quickly break it when I want to play on controller. Best thing to do is try and click them both at the same time, but click your rush button like millimeters, like frames before the other one. Oh hey, you drop down. Wait, what the fuck? Oh hey, that's what you are, man. You're just kind of playing Nicholas now, man. Let's go here, walk up. No, paladin, no. Good job, man. Jump straight in the fucking face of man, Jesus Christ. Thank you, you want? I mean, you asked the same couple of questions quite a lot, so kind of. Nice, that's 2 others here. Rest we have you here. The other one, sorry, going to go for the other right now. Yeah. On here. Don't go for the other game, all man. And back to the ball, think pretty much game. Nice, okay. I found the shot she did there. Good job. That's double more wall play, okay? Like, good job there, man. Okay, still no scratch marks going into Shack as far as I can see. Yeah. That bit was just relaxing. Oh, I know, man. Dude, like, it wasn't just the Buggles, it was the 180 Buggles into Shack, into him right to his death, right? Like, Jesus. I kind of feel bad. Shack again, he has been saved. By another mechanic, by the looks of it. I'm being swamped in mechanics. I got plan here, hold on. Speed up. Yeah, there's definitely some decent going on today. Sure. Although it's been like that for a couple of weeks now. Have you guys noticed? Like some weird desync where you might like teleport around a little bit, you know? Like rushes might take longer to like slam into things, you know? The build, don't tell me you're on that jet right now, buddy. You need to mend, dude. Living the dream? Sonny, of course, man, always. Hold on. Wait.
Lilith, have you ever had ball water? I love the meat commercial.
Oh! Yo!
Enjoy when I saw them a couple years ago.
There's the extra go trip right there, man. Oh, no. Gosh, even saying that to you, Bobble, saying back to the States, rules this day, really no kidding. Volvic, yes, I have had Volvic before. It's pretty good. Not my favorite brand.
At Domino's, you can get 2 AMG Double Pizzas delivered for $6.99 each, as well as lava cakes, french fries, and more.
Wow. That is responsible bacon. What's going on, legends? Welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're having the best day today. The new Killer Dregs released recently
that new apartment?
Yeah, put some gloves on, we'll put that trash up the bottom of the driveway.
Alright.
She's been in bed asleep all day, and you've been right in front of the TV all day.
You get up and do something.
You know what?
I said I am.
I wonder why May always fussing. You know she got this camera right here. She can see everything you do. yesterday to clean up, baby. Yeah, it did then.
I did. I came down here and picked up.
You ain't sweep up. Clean up, you got to sweep too. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I just say y'all left the towels. I want to keep the towel, but that's all right. They're going to let them get it. All right. Come on in here, help me with these clothes. Come in here and help me with these clothes. It's too bad to down here. He already started on one.
Oh, what? Oh.
Whatever that is, it smells good. Hurt this oil soap.
Smell like I can drink it.
Said it smell like I don't want to drink it. I don't think you want to do that. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, when I get through doing what I'm doing, cleaning, what y'all ain't doing.